Okay, welcome to chapter 3. There are 7 sections that we're going to cover in chapter 3. It's a pretty intense chapter because it takes you through algebra for the first time. So we're going to start with the distributive property right here. So using the distributive property and then simplifying algebraic expressions. Remember in previous lessons I taught you that algebraic expressions means no equal sign. All right, we're going to use the distributive property to solve this. So basically all you're doing is, first of all, I want you to realize how to read this. It says 4 times the quantity of 5 plus 8, okay? We know the order of operations. Normally we just do 8 plus 5 and then multiply it by 4. I just want you to understand there's another way to evaluate it. We're usually going to do it with algebraic expressions. So basically, this is all you're doing. When you do the distributive property, when I teach it, I generally say, draw 4 lines, 2 lines for every one thing inside, like this. 4 is the leader, so 4 is being distributed to the 5 and to the 8. So then you do 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 8 is 32, and together they make 52. It's a good way to do mental math as well. But again, we're not going to do it too much when they're numerical expressions. Our focus is going to be more when it is algebraic expressions. So this is a good first part that you're going to see in your homework and also on one of your first quizzes. It says use the distributive property to write each expression as an equivalent expression. So here's the equivalent expression to this problem. And then this is you evaluating it. So that's what you should show in your homework. North County Rivers of New York, Maine offers a 1-day whitewater rafting trip on the river. The trip costs $69 per person and wetsuits are $15 each. It says write 2 equivalent expressions to find the total of one trip for a family of 4 if each person uses a wetsuit. So here you have a family of 4. It's $69 per person and $15 each. So this is what your numerical expression would look like. That was what it would look like when you distributed the 4 to the 69 and distribute the 4 to the 15. And then you'd have your total cost would be to actually evaluate. The cost of a movie ticket is $7 and the cost of a box of popcorn is $2. Write 2 equivalent expressions to find the total cost for a family of 5 to go to the movies if each member of the family gets a box of popcorn. So it's going to look like this. 5 times the quantity of 7 plus 2. Distribute it, you get 5 times 7 plus 5 times 2, and then you find your total cost. Okay, this is what I want to get into. This is where we're going to do algebraic expressions. This is the most important. So first, again, I'm going to remind you how to read it because eventually you need to learn to read math instead of just staring at this and seeing symbols and numbers and letters. I want you to read it like it's a sentence. It says 2 times the quantity of x plus 4. As soon as you hear times the quantity, you know we're dealing with the distributive property. So I said, remember, the best way to not make a mistake with this is you make 2 lines for every one thing inside. So I have 2 things inside. So I'm going to make 4 lines. Who's the leader is the 2 is being distributed. They're in the front. It's always multiplication because remember it's 2 times this and 2 times that. So go back and grab my yellow. So 2 times x plus 2 times 4. That's the equivalent expression. And then simplifying it would be 2x plus 8. And you're done. That's an algebraic expression. Don't ask me if, oh, should I solve it or should I put the 2x together with the 8? You can't do any of that stuff. You can't evaluate it because you don't know what x is. You can't put 2x with 8 because they're not like terms. This is a coefficient and a variable, and it doesn't get along with this, which is called a constant. So when you get to this point, you're done. It's actually pretty fun. This one written slightly different, but you don't need to leave the 6 behind it. You can bring the 6 out in the front. Commutative property says it doesn't matter which way you multiply things. So 2 lines for every one thing inside just helps you keep things straight. Distribute the 6 to the y and distribute the 6 to the 3. I highly recommend the 2 lines to begin with because a lot of times when you're rushing through a problem, you'll distribute it to the y, but you'll forget to distribute it to the other value. So you want to make sure by putting the 2 lines, you won't make that mistake. So then you just get 6y plus 18. And that's it. Can't put those together because they're not like terms. So pause it and try to do those 2 on your own. But A should be 4m plus 28, and B is 5p plus 15. So we're doing the same thing, only it's a subtraction problem. It doesn't make a difference. One of the things that we could do is change the subtraction to add opposite. Remember you learned that in chapter 2. So you would go plus negative, add opposite, and then go ahead and make your lines like that. Distribute the 4 as the leader to the x, so you're going the 4 to the x, then distribute the 4 to the negative 2. Then you get 4x plus, remember our rule, every 2 negatives make a positive, so this is a negative 8. That's not the best way to write it, so that's okay, but this is better. Remember, in math, it's about making things look simpler. And this looks simpler because it has less symbols in it. Notice this has a plus and a negative. They mean exactly the same thing, but this is just easier to read. This is why it's super important for you to do add the opposite so as not to make a mistake here, because this is where you would make your mistake. So go through and go add opposite, then go ahead and I'm going to just make your lines 1, 2 plus 1, 2. You're distributing the negative 2 to the n, then you're distributing the negative 2 to the negative 3. Don't drop your negatives. And you end up with negative 2n plus, remember every 2 negatives make a positive in multiplication, 6. And there you go. And you're done. It's not that hard. It's not even time consuming once you get fast at it. So pause the tape right here and try to do those 2 on your own. Okay, if chances are this is the one you got wrong. So hopefully you did plus negative like that. And you have negative 7 times b and negative 7 times negative 3. So I have negative 7b here, plus those 2 negatives make a positive 21. There you go. That's the end of distributive property. Good luck.